The height of PvE in Deepwoken is being the fastest in the world at conquering any and all challenges this game has to offer, but most importantly, it's being able to do it completely solo. And you clearly desire to do this too, whether it's being so fast that you claim a world record or just wanting to be able to farm items more efficiently. This guide will cover all the methods I and other top PvEers have used to become true PvE masters. Layer 2, hellmode, Premodon, ferryman, Maestro, and the diluvian mechanism are all the challenges Deepwoken currently offers for PvE. Well, I mean, there's Kaido too, but you can just cheese him with a cliff. Anyways, I'm going to go over how to deal with all of the entities in these dungeons, and the strategies that can help you clear it significantly quicker, and also the types of builds and gear you should bring. Keep in mind, I won't be discussing specific builds in great detail, because that's a future PvE guide I plan to make. So if you enjoyed this video or want to see that, make sure you subscribe so you get notified when that gets uploaded. Oh yeah, and join my Discord for my PvE builds. Anyways, let's start with my home turf, Layer 2, having both Chaser and Atheron in it. A lot of navigation is required for this dungeon. Since it's a consistent map, it's very easy to learn where to go. There's a very useful interactive map on the Deepwoken wiki that can help you learn where to go, or you can simply just copy the routes other people take. I'll leave a copy of my Discord linked in the description below if you don't know where to go, since I've just uploaded some guides that'll show you the best ways to navigate through Layer 2, whether you're doing a farming route or speedrunning it. Anyways, let's start with how to deal with Chase's attacks. He has 5 of them, and as a whole they're pretty easy to deal with. His triple attack is 3 evenly spaced parries. If you don't know the timing, then I've unironically found it useful to use a metronome at 145 beats per minute. Yes, this really helps because it's the exact timing I use to parry. Whenever you hear the perilous sound effect, make sure that you press Q instantly, so you don't want to be dashing around in case he hits you with this attack. For the fire attack he does, you can simply block it, dodge it, or just be moving too fast for it to hit you. For the stalactite or blood wave attacks, you go to the blood jars and hold block for the former, and climb up the little pillars on the side of the ladder. To deal as much damage as possible with Chaser, you want to break his final jar about 1 second after his last attack. This will give you time to run under him. If you're running a build like my God Slayers that are one-cycling him without chain stacks, then you want to spam all your M1s and mantras at pretty even spaces. Make sure you're perfect casting against him to get maximum damage. A very easy way to get damage here is to simply use Frost Draw mantras, since they're cast very quick, so it can let you get some fast damage between M1s. Now, what are some ways you can clear floor 1 of Layer 2 even faster? Ice Skates is a major time skip, since you Ice Skates the Bonekeeper, then from there you go to Village, and if you also have Glacial Arc, you can fall down here, climb up the wall a little bit, make sure to hug this wall while you're falling down to spawn the bounders while you're out of bounds, then you simply can use Ice Lance, Gale Lunge, or Metal Ball to climb up the Glacial Arc. Then you just Ice Skates directly to Chaser. It's a very useful bunch of time saves. Spark Swap is another mantra that helps save time. You can Spark Swap to grab the key, as well as Spark Swap after you spawn the bounders, to let you get to Chaser that little bit faster. It's about a collective 10 seconds of time save. While 10 seconds doesn't sound like a lot, across 6 runs, that's a whole minute you have saved. So that means across 60 runs, you've saved yourself a whole hour of time. If you want to watch top speedrunners, I have 2 speedruns linked below and in my Discord if you want to copy the routes they take, since they're clearing Chaser in almost under 3 minutes. Okay, but what about floor 2? While it's not very good to farm for loot, it is still incredibly useful to farm if you want medallions, since they can get you knowledge or armor enchants. There's lots of small little tricks that you can use to make floor 2 that little bit faster, although as a whole this is significantly slower than floor 1 on average. A lot of people do get scared of the Atheron fight and escaping, but trust me, it's actually a lot easier than you think. First, feel free to wish for power at the Miserables for the cost of 5 medallions. If you think you need it to 1 cycle, then absolutely take it. 5 medallions is a lot better for your time than having to 2 cycle Atheron. For Atheron Slam, you want to press F about 1 second after his sound cue. Then you can attack the hand to get extra damage off, or even heal from it. For his triple bone attack, you want to try to parry the first bone, then hold F. It should auto parry the second one and then block the third. Although if you don't need to pick up the bones and don't want to get hit by them, you can simply hide behind the pillars in the boss fight. For the floor bones attack in his first phase, where it just spawns below you, you want to jump over them as soon as you see them appear, or if you're moving fast enough you can ignore them. For the bone wave attack he does if you don't one phase him, you've simply just got to keep an eye on where it is in the rotation, since if you're not careful, it can cause you to get hit into the sky. For his beam attack, you simply just stand F. It's very rare that you won't get chipped a little bit while dealing with this attack. Just watch out for the floor bones attack at the same time, since that does trip players up quite a lot. For the blinding attack, don't really worry about this at all. While you can parry it, as long as you react to Atheron's sound cues, you'll be perfectly fine. And for his ultimate attack, where he charges it up, you want to wait about 2 seconds after the audio of it stops. Then slide jump and air dash in the other direction, or you can slide down the staircases that you use to get the higher up floors. That's another very easy way to dodge the ultimate without taking any damage. If you have something like dash, metal ball, or ghost, you can use that instead of slide jumping as well. To one cycle him, it's very important to try to build up chain of perfection stacks whenever he slams. You also want to make sure you have a blessed gem on your best mantra, since Atheron is stunned long enough for you to be able to use it twice. And that's really it. Atheron is a pretty simple boss. While his attacks may seem scary, as long as you keep your cool and react to sound cues, you'll be fine. Also, when escaping layer 2, make sure that you save on ether, since you want to use a mobility mantra right about here where all the snipers are. Usually I'll end up going right to avoid them. You don't want to go straight through unless you have something like brick wall, otherwise you risk getting infinitely stun locked by their spears. Although if you do get hit, you want to make sure to right click immediately to ragdoll cancel. This will just let you keep running without getting comboed. To clear him faster, there isn't really a ton of stuff you can do. The main ones are pretty similar to floor 1. You can ice skates across the void and clip into the library. Then you just use ice skates and glacial arc to beeline to all the other obelisks. Doing that can help you farm Chaos medallions very quick. So basically for layer 2, you ideally want a PvE with ice skates or spark swap, preferably both. And that wraps us up on how to do layer 2 very efficiently. A recommended build for this would be my Godslayer builds. Now let's discuss Hell mode. To deal with Hell mode, having long-lasting mantras with lingering hitboxes is incredibly useful. For the most part, a lot of the mobs in this game mode are very weak and will die in under a second from most mantras. However, there is a major misconception about Hell mode. There is a huge difference between solo and normal Hell mode. Solo Hell mode isn't really something you need to worry about, since less than 1% of the player base can actually start a solo Hell mode. Normal Hell modes are 5 times less intense, since you'll have teammates around to help deal with monsters, making it significantly harder to be overwhelmed. Usually, there's periods with no monsters in a normal Hell mode if you're running with a good party. Even though there is a huge difference between normal and solo Hell mode, it can never hurt to be over-prepared. So these are all the tricks that you can do to increase your survivability, and even solo it if you can somehow start one. You want to first stack a ton of different damage resistances. These include talents like Berserker, which gives you a 20% damage reduction if you kill something, as well as Turtle Shell, which reduces damage from behind by 50%. Cases where this is useful include stuff like the Alpha Chakra Teleport Bites. This just simply gives you time to health pack, since you won't need to worry about your health getting too low too fast. The Viscosity enchant is another example of this, since it spreads all the damage you take across 1 second, giving you a lot of time to regen or even health pack of something. Next, make sure you're using AoE mantras. Tornado Tornado and Metal Rain are the two best mantras for this, because once you cast them, they're generally static, so they'll stay in one place regardless if you get moved. This means monsters can get trapped in them, they'll be posture broken, and killed super fast. Relentless Flames and Ice Carve are two other mantras. They're a tier below Tornado and Metal Rain, but still incredibly good. All four of these mantras are mantras that let you clear large clumps of enemies. It's very important to kill problem enemies very fast so you can't get overwhelmed as easily. Ideally, you also want to have a guard break crit. You can get these on most great axes and great hammers, although the best one in my opinion is the Enforcer's Axe crit. Since it has a long hitbox, you don't need to time it perfect. Luckily, you don't need to spec into mobility if you only really care about doing hell mode and the diluvian, but the diluvian's for a little later. Luckily, you also don't need to spec into much mobility at all with hell mode, so this gives you more points to focus on defense talents or more offense. However, if you do plan to do stuff other than hell mode on that build, then getting some mobility is very important. Now let's discuss the monsters that naturally spawn in that you'll need to worry about. Enforcers are an example of this, because they can parry you, which can stuff up a lot of mantras or people that are trying to M1 monsters. Using a guard break crit or a long ranged mantra is very important for them. Squippos are essentially a way worse enforcer and should be instantly killed with a crit, seeing as they only have 1000 health. If a Fury Squibbo spawns in, you want to make extra sure that it dies as soon as possible, since if you don't deal with it soon, it may stun lock you when there is a lot of enemies around you. Threshers are annoying just because of their burrow attack that can launch you into the air. If you have the Ignition Deep Delver armor that also gives you the most resistances, then it can let you parry the burrow. Although an alternative to Ignition Deep Delver is Tide Knight, but that is significantly harder to get. You also don't need to run a brick wall build for hell mode. While it's very useful in solo, you can play around not having brick wall if you want to invest into more defense or more offense. Although in the end, it's really up to what you prefer. You can use brick wall if you like those type of builds, but personally I think it's a few too many stat points for me. And that is how you can easily clear hell modes, including solo hell modes if you're lucky enough to start it. You should be able to farm them very easily as long as you're able to assess the situation around you and deal with problem enemies before you get overwhelmed. And if you're planning to make a build for hell mode, make sure you have good mantras like Tornado, Metal Rain, Relentless Flames, or Ice Carve. Now let's kill Primadon. He's a very hard fight if you aren't playing patient. Much like hell mode, you want to try to use long-lasting mantras with a lingering hitbox that can deal damage whilst you parry him. Examples of this are Tornado and Warden's Blades. You want to make sure you parry his attacks, then attack once yourself before waiting for the next attack. Getting too greedy for damage can cause you to get kicked and take a ton of fall damage. For his stomps, you want to be very patient and not try to predict parry. Unlike most other triple attacks like a Thresher Bite or Chase's Bloodshots, Primadons are very slow. Parry the first stomp, wait to see his leg raised, then parry again, then just repeat for his third stomp. For his kick, you want to make sure you wait for his leg to stop moving when he moves it behind him. Do not try to parry this kick unless you have Ignition Deep Delver, otherwise you're going to get sent away and take a lot of fall damage. When he jumps back to throw rocks, just hold block. If you do get hit with the kick or approach Primadon, he may try to grab and throw you, or even punch you, so you want to be very aware of this, and generally dodge when you get near Primadon, just in case. The easiest way to kill Primadon is by using the Providence Thorns enchant. It can let you kill him in about a minute on literally any build, just because of the amount of times you're parrying during the fight. There isn't really a purpose to killing Primadon faster than in 3 minutes, seeing as there is a limited respawn timer on the campfire he has. If you have Providence Thorns and a high duration mantra like Warden's Blades and Tornado, you're generally pretty set. It's a very simple boss if you're good at parrying him.
Yes, a wager. You mortals love wagers.
Ferryman is even simpler if you're on a mage build, since mages are the best way to kill Ferryman. Now, mages did cop a little bit of a nerf in the previous weekly, however you can still kill him in under 20 seconds on a good build. His attacks are very simple. For his lightning strike or grand volley attack, you simply just run away from the attacks. Don't try to parry or block or even dodge them. There really isn't much of a point. For his lightning assault, you want to wait 1 second after you hear him teleport. Then you parry the first one, wait another second, and repeat this for all three. It's a very easy attack to parry once you get into the rhythm of it. This lightning assault attack does become significantly quicker in the second phase, so then you want to wait about half a second. Although sometimes the parry timings will be a little bit odd, because if you're near a wall and he does this attack, it can cause him to bounce off the wall and do the next attack even quicker. So you've just got to be really aware of where you are in the ferryman arena. To deal with his clones, you can either use a mantra or you can vent towards them to destroy them. I really wouldn't recommend trying to parry or even M1 his clones. A neat thing about Ferryman is he effectively has double chain of perfection applied, meaning that the boss is exponentially faster the more you parry him and the less you get hit. This also means the damage on mantras with high multi-hit like Tornado or Warden's Blades is incredibly high. I'd recommend using a Shadow or Gale Mage to deal with Ferryman as fast as possible. You should also ideally be using the Providence Thorns enchant, unless you're on a primarily M1 build, in which case something like Grim or Astral is better. Now let's talk about the Duke of Aresia. The best way to kill him is high posture damage weapons and high damage mantras. The best weapon for him is the Stoneheart, because if you charge the crit for about a second, then use it, it'll deal incredible damage to him. There's also currently a semi-bug, or maybe it's intended, feature in the game with humanoids, where if you charge the Stoneheart crit, land it, you can use something like Relentless Flames or Ice Carp to get massive damage on him. However, this tech might be patched, so I'll leave it in a pinned comment if there is changes to the Stoneheart. Regardless, it still has incredibly high posture damage, so in the second phase where Duke is blocking, you can guard break him pretty quick. To deal with his attacks, you just want to be very patient while parrying him in the first phase. You want to wait for him to do an attack, either block or parry it, then you simply M1 twice. There's also a misconception around his first phase, since I don't believe his shield is posture based. I'm 99% sure you simply just have to deal enough damage. So you don't need to run a high weight weapon unless it's for the second phase. Finally, the only real major skip for Duke is by using Spark Swap against this wall. It can let you skip a lot of the dungeon very easily. You just want to look at roughly this part of the wall and use it. You'll get the spacing down eventually. On a good build, you can pretty consistently defeat the Duke dungeon in under a minute. Maestro is the other Gale boss in the game, and honestly, there's quite a few cheese methods people have used for him. Most of them, like the current Stoneheart meta, typically tend to get patched in a weekly. However, you can still do him on pretty much any build in under a minute if you simply just parry his attacks well. These are his attacks. The M1 and critical he does, you simply just parry. There isn't much of a trick to it. For his flourish, you can try to just hold block or dodge it. It's a very hard attack to parry, I find. For his wind passage, if you can't parry this move very well, then you simply just want to move out of the path of it, and it won't hit you at all. For his heavenly wind, wait half a second after the sound cue, then parry or dodge. The one mind attack just requires you to spam parry, and his triple attack you want to parry, wait half a second, parry, wait another half a second, then dodge the final swing. His attacks may take quite a while to get used to, but parrying him with Providence Thorns gives you a ton of damage. You also want to try to use a very fast but high damage mantra after you guard break Maestro. Examples of these include Iron Slam, Astral Wind, or Strong Left. Now finally, let's discuss how to beat and even solo the Diluvian mechanism. I've previously made a guide on how to beat the diluvian mechanism when it was still a new dungeon. However, new tech is found, and even though I previously thought it was impossible to solo the dungeon, there is ways to semi-consistently do it now. Although I still recommend watching that guide if you're very interested in the diluvian mechanism, since it goes into a lot more detail on stuff like team comp. Anyways, to beat it, the most important thing is having a high AoE on your mantras. This can let you deal with a lot of targets at once. Mantras that deal a lot of posture damage are also very important. Examples of these are Tornado and Metal Rain. A lot of people consider the diluvian mechanism to be similar to hellmode. Although they are similar in the wave-based function, they have very different monsters. For example, hellmode's monsters are very weak, and you can usually health pack incredibly quick, while on average a lot of the diluvian monsters will have way higher HP. This is why posture breaking with something like Metal Rain is very important, because it essentially takes the monsters out of the fight for a few seconds, letting you deal with them or get some breathing room. Physical resistance is also very important here, since especially on the higher rounds, you can take a lot of damage at once if you're not careful. You also need to have some sort of M1 damage for the rounds where mantras are disabled, so this is why stuff like a Grand Sudaraska or Ignition Deep Crusher is actually pretty useful here. I wouldn't recommend running full mage builds in the diluvian mechanism unless you have a very good team. Now let's discuss how the strategies differ from solo diluvian and teams. In a team, you want to try to split up into different corners of the map to deal with the monsters as soon as possible. Make sure you communicate if there's something too strong or if you're starting to get low. Honestly, it's pretty easy to do if you're running competent builds and have decent teammates. You just need to make sure that you're playing correctly. You also don't need to use brick wall in teams, since out of all of the people that were running diluvian mechanism in my original party when we first beat it, only one of us actually had brick wall. Now, for soloing it, unless you have absolutely inhuman skills, there is pseudo requirements to actually having a chance to solo the diluvian mechanism. Brick wall is almost certainly a must. While you can do it without brick wall, it's significantly harder if you're not running it. So I'd recommend going 100 fortitude and 100 willpower pre-shrine for it. Since you're effectively fighting 5 times the monsters and there's no one else to take the aggro, every second counts with how much stronger these monsters are than the ones found in hell mode. Corrupt counter is also needed. It's essentially a full health bar every 15 seconds when you cast it. As long as you can survive until the next cooldown, you'll never die in the diluvian mechanism. Plus, brick wall is almost certainly needed because it allows you to land the beam variant of the counter incredibly consistently. If you do plan to solo the diluvian mechanism, make sure you do your research on what the best builds for it are, and you also have quite a lot of experience in the normal diluvian mechanism first. Here are a few final strats for solo and teams. For monsters, you want to make sure to watch out for anything lightning attuned, since it can stun lock you. Squibbos, although these squibbos can be damaged by mantras, so they're a little easier to deal with. Enforcers, yet again because they can parry. The Kia snipers, simply because they have insane range. And bounders, because they can deal incredibly high damage to you if you're not watching what they're doing. You want to try to wipe out all of these monsters first, if you have a choice. Overall, the diluvian mechanism is probably the hardest challenge Deepwoken offers, although you can complete it fairly easily if you actually prepare properly and play well. This game mode does require a lot of knowledge on how to fight different monsters, so you don't want to jump into it right away if you're still new to PvE. To speed up the runs, there's no real way to do it past trading off some defense for even more offense, although it's risky to become too squishy in the diluvian mechanism just because of how much damage you can take. The only other way to make your runs faster is to simply get better at fighting monsters, which can take time. This has been the ultimate guide to fighting bosses and defeating dungeons in Deepwoken. Make sure that you're taking time to practice and learn how to deal with all the attacks. If you do this, you can easily farm them for any item or even get world record times. If you want to know what the best builds are, then I'd really recommend anything in the V4 series for most of them, but if you want a more specific and detailed answer, I have a PvE build making guide that I'll release very soon. It shows the best builds for everything in Deepwoken and how to make them. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed and found this useful. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe and join my Discord. Anyways, make sure to check out some more PvE content, and I'll see you all next time.